The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Sky, all the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Yeah, you are welcome along. We'll talk to Graham Gartland later in the show. It's been a really, really madcap time in the League of Ireland, in the sense that Shamrock Rovers went to Drogheda on Monday and lost, with Danny Mandroy getting sent off, Jack Byrne being injured, but Derry City completely unable to bridge the gap because they lost to Dundalk on Friday and then they lost to Sligo, who sacked their manager in the meantime on Monday. All the while, Dundalk, if they win the game in hand, are just 5 points off Shamrock Rovers, which is completely mad. And down at the bottom, UCD and Finn Harps are struggling. So we've Graham Gartland ahead to talk about all of that. Before that, it's a Champions League final with a strong Latin American team. And with that in mind, and to talk about a bit of the Copa Libertadores and restructuring in Brazil and all life in Brazil and in Latin America, we have Tim Vickery on the line. How are you, Tim?
I'm very well. Very good evening to you. How are you doing?
I'm all right. What's the weather like down there?
Well, we're coming up to winter, which means, and I don't expect sympathy, it's around 25 degrees. But as we get now towards the end of the afternoon, temperatures are going to dip alarmingly. I'm expecting quite a cold night where it may even get down to about 15, 16.
How are you going to survive?
I don't know. I'll make of it the best that I can.
So the Champions League final we'll start with. What's it like in Brazil when the Champions League final is on? Is everyone kind of glued to it, or what's the atmosphere like? Does everyone go to the street? Do they go to the bars? Where do they go?
Well, there's a reason that this game was switched from Wednesday afternoon your time to Saturday evening, and that's that the rest of the world, it's easier for so much of the rest of the world to see it, especially including the Americas, because it used to be, when it was a Wednesday final, it's during work time in the afternoon. Now we've got it Saturday afternoon, prime time, and it's a huge game for a number of reasons. And one, I think it's a fabulous game in itself. Two is that European football has sold itself so well over here that irrespective of whether there are any South Americans on the field, the fans over here, a lot of the fans have a relationship with the clubs and are desperate to see what happens. And three is, you said it earlier on, Johnny, a South American theme. There are lots of South American players on the field. So we want to look at them with a view, perhaps, in some cases, to the World Cup later on this year. Obviously, that doesn't apply to Luis Diaz of Colombia because they didn't get there. But there's a lot of Brazilians out there and a Uruguayan as well. So there are plenty of reasons for a South American audience to follow this game.
What are you, like half your lifetime living there now or so?
It's not far off that way. Yeah, it's. But I still think of England as being home. But I'm approaching the halfway point. Yes.
What's it been like such a transformation?
Living over here. It's even though I've been here for 28 years, it would have been half my life, but I've just turned 57 yesterday. So we're not quite there yet. Thank you very much. I can't, even though I've been here all this time and I'm married to a Brazilian and I've got two Brazilian stepdaughters who, they're in their mid-30s now, but they've been in my life for over 25 years. I still can't see it entirely as home. Really, because I'm the product of a different thing. I'm the product of something that doesn't really exist anymore. It's called the welfare state. I'm a product of council housing. I'm a product of free education. I'm a product of going to university and having everything paid. You actually paid you to go there. Those kind of examples for my class of people in Brazil don't really exist. Not sure they exist too much in the land of my birth anymore. But the lack of kind of social democratic values means that however much I enjoy being here, I never feel entirely at home. That difference between rich and poor, and also the way that the fear of violence corrodes the social spirit, makes it harder to wander around freely. That means that despite all of my affection for the place, and it is a love-hate relationship, I can never really fully think of it as home.
So if you're a Westerner, do you feel a little bit unsafe walking the streets at night?
Well, everyone does. I mean, it means that there are far fewer people walking the streets at night, which in turn makes it less safe. Yes, I mean that has really corroded. And when I was first over here, and we're going back now to the mid-90s, I would give English classes to executives who are the age that I am now, and they used to laugh at New York for its lack of safety. This is something which has happened in Brazil it's a dynamic of the last 40, 50 years. And it has to do with growing population, cities growing even when their economies shrink, a lack of opportunities, dreadful wealth distribution. The great historian Eric Hobsbawm described Brazil as the world champion of economic inequality. We did make progress a few years back, but I'm afraid, we've been in reverse gear for the last few years.
Football Show is brought to you by Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sport. And in that context then, is football still the way out for, I guess impoverished kids? We'll talk about Luis Diaz as well, because he's a great example of this in Latin America. But is football still that outlet for everyone to kind of become equal?
Oh, well, for everyone to get a shake and to buy a house for their mum and extended family. It worries me this sometimes, the responsibilities that are placed on young footballers when they show some talent. And there are plenty of cases of promising young footballers, at the age of like 15, their entire family, some of them they'll give up work and they will just become his support structure. And that's putting a lot of pressure on a young man at an age when he should be playing football with the accent on play. They're almost like soldiers on a mission. And Vinicius Junior certainly fits into that category. And luckily, he's so good, and football is such a great game that I think he enjoys himself hugely on the field. But it comes loaded with so much pressure to succeed, not only for himself, but for also to guarantee his extended family.
That's quite mad when you think about it. I mean,
yes.
Back in the day, football was, for most of its existence, was basically a part-time pursuit for most of the players, and they had their job in the day and whatever. But now you've almost like an entire family hinging on your success
at the age of 15. I mean, it's insanity, and it certainly doesn't make for long-term mental health. You wonder where there will be a reaction somewhere down the line. I have a friend journalist who he went into this deeply with the Vinicius Junior generation. Another one, Paulinho, who's similar generation, went to Germany, went to Leverkusen. And he came back very, very worried after talking to them, because one thing that they can't do at that age, 13, 14, 15, they're not allowed to play football in the streets with their mates. They're not allowed to do it, because it's an activity that comes full of professional responsibilities at that very, very early age. So when we look at this game on Saturday, and I'm really looking forward to a fabulous, fabulous game of football. It's so easy to envy these players, the amount of money that they get. But we really should remember, firstly, that the vast majority fall by the wayside. And secondly, that even for those who don't, there is a price to pay for all of this success on the field.
And he was you just looked at him, he's turns 22 this summer, comes from kind of the southeast of the country, and we'll obviously talk about Diaz, but he's an amazing player to watch, and he does seem to play with almost like a free spirit in not quite the way that you suggested he was brought up in terms of all the pressure on him.
Yeah, and I've followed him all the way, and I remember Real Madrid buying him before he played a professional game for Flamengo, and they spent over 45 million euros.
How does that work, Tim?
Well, I think the reason was Real Madrid were so miffed at having missed out on Neymar that they were going to make sure that they weren't going to miss out on this one. So they were quite prepared to pay massively over the odds, because at that point he was 16. He hadn't played a professional game. There was no way of knowing whether he'd develop into what he is now. And I remember his first game. I was in the stadium for it. He was on the bench, and he'd already been sold. Real Madrid couldn't take him until he was 18. So for the first 18 months of his career, he was here in Brazil playing for Flamengo, and he was on the bench. And the fans spent the whole game calling for him. They just wanted to see him. They wanted to see this 45 million euro teenager, 16-year-old, and he came on for the last 10 minutes. And all he did, he tried to run through his repertoire of tricks, and none of them came off. And by the end of that 10 minutes, he was already being booed. So he'd had his first cheers and his first boos in his first 10 minutes of professional football. As time went on, you began to see that, yes, there really is something there. At first, it was hard for him to add precision to his pace. It's very difficult to be precise when you're travelling at the speed that he travels. But I remember one game clearly. Again, he came off the bench. It was a Champions League game, Copa Libertadores game, away in Ecuador against Emelec. And Flamengo were losing. And he came on and he won the game. He was astonishing. And the great thing there was that at the final whistle, the home fans, the fans of Emelec of Ecuador, they queued up to have their photo taken with him. They weren't angry about the fact that this player, this teenager had come on and won the game against their side. They recognised, one of those rare moments where they recognised that they had been in the presence of something special and they wanted to go home with the souvenir. And for me, the match-up between Vinicius Junior and Trent Alexander-Arnold, for me, it's the most important match-up of the game. Remember when these sides met in the quarterfinals last year? Vinicius Junior won the game. 3-1 in the Bernabeu. It was 0-0 at Anfield, and Real Madrid went marching on. And I'm fascinated to see what happens with this matchup. How will Liverpool play it? Because Vinicius, the speed, Trent Alexander-Arnold is a magnificent player, but defending is not his strongest suit, is it? And he would rather go forward. And if you were Liverpool, you would rather him do what he does best and not more of what he does not so well. So if they're going to free Trent to go forward, they've got to have someone covering that space. But also, they've got to stop the supply line. And that game in the Bernabeu when Real Madrid won 3-1, Vinicius' supply line was Toni Kroos. It could be Modric. It could be Casemiro. It could be Valverde. They've got all kinds of options. And Real Madrid have shown time and time again in this campaign, they don't have to be better for the 90 minutes to win the match. So the conclusion that I would draw for that is that Liverpool have to press relentlessly. So they can't be the Liverpool at kind of half cock that they were in the first half against Villarreal in Spain, where they nearly let things slip. And the conclusion that I draw from that is that we are in for a special game. Bring it on. I can hardly wait.
I don't think Liverpool are capable of pressing relentlessly at this stage of the season. Maybe I'm wrong. Right. I think their legs are slightly on the wane, which is entirely understandable. Like at this stage of the season, maybe so. And also the fact that Klopp has, frequently spoken about Trent Alexander-Arnold's defending as not being an issue. But I completely agree with you. I think in a matchup like this, he's vulnerable. So do Liverpool, are they going to break from their high line a little bit? Are they going to be a little bit more conservative? Are they going to do what you do, Tim, and just press the crap out of Real and hope for the best?
Well, I would hope it's option number 3 for really getting a game. I hope we don't get a Liverpool that's more cautious. But I think your observation is very pertinent. The time of the season, how much do Liverpool still have in their legs? But these are big choices, aren't they? And they're choices that are based around all the great players. These are choices that I think are based mainly around one player, which is Vinicius Junior.
You're asked at this stage to play, and me, Arthur, Michael and I were looking at the old days of the European Cup where you had, knockout competitions. Nowadays you're asked to play an obscene amount of games at a pace that's never been done before, and you're expected to go right to the end.
Yeah, and it's provided us, hasn't it, with some fantastic entertainment. Even those of us who have misgivings about aspects of modern football, you can hardly knock the closing stages of the Champions League. They've been extraordinarily dramatic, and I've felt sorry in some of the games for the defenders because they have to. Sometimes they do so many excellent defensive things, but it's not enough because they're being asked to be excellent again and again and again. And I hope from the point of view of the spectacle that we have something similar on Saturday in Paris.
Well, let's talk a bit more of a human story again. So let's talk about Luis Diaz, and this is just a remarkable tale. And I think what's incredible for me is that it's been so seamless for him to fit in. It literally took it half an hour for him to look like he'd been playing for Liverpool for some time, and you do get the feeling he's a bit fresher than Salah at this stage, I think, of the season.
Yeah, it's astonishing. I mean, I always saw him as a Liverpool player. And I thought that Liverpool would be after him in January because you could just see how he would fit into that side as a backup for Mane, the left wing cutting in. But I had no idea that he was going to make this immediate impact. Arriving and not speaking a word of English, but instantly finding a football lexicon with his new teammates. Now, I've been watching him for Colombia, who astonishingly missed out on World Cup qualification.
Can't score.
Yeah, they went 7 games without a goal. Now, he played in all of those games. So, with his compatriots, he wasn't able to find this footballing language. But with Liverpool, it just clicked right from the start. And I think so often you have to credit Klopp for the excellence of his work, because if this is happening time and time again, it's happened with Diego Jota as well, really, hasn't it? I mean, if this is happening time and time again, it's not coincidence. And so many of these players, at the time that Liverpool bought them, were not considered the superstars that they are now. So I think that the conclusion that you'd have to arrive at there is that Klopp has been wonderful at developing these players.
His backstory is just so insane as well, in that he was effectively deemed, and this is like something out of North Korea, where he was basically malnourished. He wasn't actually fed well enough to be a young footballer, and look where he is now.
Yes, and from indigenous communities, the indigenous people who are massive victims of the whole colonial process in the Americas, and you don't see that many of them really thrive in professional football. So his story is wonderful. I met a mate of mine from Colombia last week, and his family, they traced their roots back to Madrid. His mother, who's 93, was born in Madrid and went to Colombia as a young woman. And if Real Madrid are playing at 4:00 in the morning in Colombia, she will wake up at 4:00 in the morning to watch Real Madrid. That's her level of fanaticism. But my friend was saying, I know my mum feels like that, but I have to cheer for Liverpool because of Luis Diaz. He is the only thing which is putting a smile on the face of our football, and he is representing us at the highest level. So sorry, Mum, we're on opposite sides on this one. That's what he said.
How Liverpool have, obviously, they're bookended by Brazilians as well, but how big can Diaz become as a Liverpool player? Because you can see, I guess, Firmino's influence has waned in the last season and change.
Yeah, well, Firmino, Luis Diaz has done so well that he's given that selection dilemma to Klopp. What do I do now? Do I play Mane through the centre? And I don't think anyone had really expected it at this point. He's a player signed just to keep on freshening up that front three that have been together for so long. So we'll have to see if he starts and if Mane plays through the centre, or if Klopp decides to do something different. How do you imagine he'll play it up front?
I don't know. I think I don't know what he's going to do in terms of keeping them fresh and keeping something in reserve, because I do feel that Salah is I think his legs are slightly gone. Mane, Diaz, Salah maybe, and hope that Firmino might do something off the bench. But I'm not sure if Salah's got 90 minutes in him, to be honest, him at this stage. I don't know.
Interesting. And as I said earlier on, we've seen so often in this campaign that Real Madrid don't need to be better in the game.
No, and
they just have little patches of 5 minutes and they'll take it away.
I've kind of been saying, all through the knockout stages, Real just are not very good. And how are they? But they just keep doing it. And you know, the more I get to Saturday and the more I've kind of watched Liverpool in recent weeks, I'm just not sure mentally it'll be all that easy for them to just turn it on again. And Real are in such territory now as to say, this is bonus territory, and it's almost like their name is on the trophy.
We shall see there's an all Brazilian clash here, which I find fascinating, which is Casemiro against Fabinho. These are direct rivals for a place in the Brazil team. It's Casemiro's. Casemiro is one of Brazil's leaders on the team, but Fabinho is his backup. The coach has thought, is there a way of playing them both? And I don't think the two of them together, you'd lose mobility and it wouldn't quite work. So unless there's a change of heart, it's one or the other. Now, I tend to the view that they're both excellent players, wonderful on the ball, maybe Fabinho's distribution is a little bit better, perhaps, but I think Casemiro defends better. And I think Fabinho can be vulnerable. And I wonder about that as well, because all of these things are going to be put to the test at some point during the 90 minutes. These players are really going to be put to the test. And I just wonder if that's something which might tip things Real's way.
So how do you call it?
Always make your predictions after the event. They're
I still get them wrong.
Yeah, even after the event. Yeah, I still think England are going to beat Germany in that 1990 World Cup semi-final. You have been the straw that's broken the camel's back for me, because before our conversation, I would have said, I still just fancy Liverpool, but you've just put a little doubt to my mind about tiredness in Liverpool's legs. So I'm wondering now about Real. But the prediction I really want to come through is that whatever happens, this is going to be a game that we're going to remember for the rest of our days. And I think there's honestly a chance of this being one of the all-time great European Cup / Champions League finals. So often the finals are disappointing. Sometimes they rise. Sometimes there's cheap drama. I'm hoping that this one can have all kinds of drama, including the drama of quality.
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of quality. It should be pointed out that Liverpool have gotten out of... I mean, for Liverpool to make a title race out of it in Britain, in England this season, was the most ridiculous achievement anyway. And obviously they've gotten out of some sticky situations themselves, including against Wolves on Sunday, where they effectively, there was 13 minutes to go and Liverpool looked like all they had to do was score, and they managed to win the game, but things just went awry at the Etihad Stadium. So Liverpool have shown that they have a way out. My gut feeling is just that they're not quite at their peak at this stage, but we shall see. What a game to look for. What time will it be on your time?
It's 4:00 in the afternoon. Perfect. I can have my afternoon walk in the sunshine, get back, just relax, have a quick shower, sit down and watch the game and really, really enjoy it.
Beautiful. And so this intrigues me as well, just to kind of wrap up our South American section. The restructuring that's going on in Brazil, like, we don't really take much notice of the Brazilian league over here. We see some clips of the amazing crowds at games in Latin America, Copa Libertadores and so on. Some of us might have had a fondness for Riquelme, see how he's getting on, as and so on and so forth. But tell us about what's going on in Brazil structurally, because it's been a complex thing, and I know they've gotten advice from Europe as to what to do.
Yeah, and this is still a work in progress. Brazil attempting to launch a kind of Premier League. They did it in 1987, and it only lasted a year. So they had to go 5 years before the Premier League, and they ran into problems, and there are lots of problems still to be overcome. Where we are at the moment is, how do we distribute the money? There's a lot of money on the table for this, but there are big discussions. Now, what should be the gap? In terms of the TV money, what should be the gap between the club that gets most and the club that gets least? In the Premier League, from Premier League receipts, I'm told that the gap between the biggest and the smallest is 1.6. In Spain, it's 3.5. In Brazil, as it stands, it's 9. The side getting most TV money gets 9 times more than the side getting least.
That's the funny thing about the Premier League, for all its ills. It's actually very, very egalitarian in that regard.
Yes. Now, with the Brazilian one, we're not going to get to 1.6. We may get to 3.5, which is where Spain has managed to get it to. Now, that's going to involve a lot of negotiation. The hope there is that there is so much money on the table that there is room for manoeuvre and there's room for compromise. But while we're focusing on this, there are other problems that are just being kicked down the road. And these problems are huge problems. For want of a better word, this league is going to work internationally if the product, and I despise using that word, if the product is a good one. And that means the pitches, they're terrible. The pitches, who's going to take responsibility for this? Pitches, refereeing, but especially the calendar. Now, the calendar is complicated. I'll try and do this quickly and make it as, I promise I won't be asking questions afterwards.
Tim, it's a quarter to 11. I asked you this question at 9:30. You've given me the A to Z, and it's taken you an hour and a quarter.
The Brazilian calendar as it stands, the first few months of the year, from mid-January to either April or early May, is given over to the state championships. That's one for each of the 27 states that make up this giant country. Geography matters here. And then the National League starts mid-May and goes all the way through to December. These state championships just clutter the whole thing up. From the point of view of the big clubs, they're too many meaningless games. And it means that the calendar is a constant effort to try and get 3 litres into a bottle that will only hold 2. So the obvious thing that needs to be done is to change the format, scrap these state championships and have a year-long National League, as you have in every other country. But there are 2 problems here. One is that Brazil's FA is a confederation. The power lies not with the clubs, but with the state federations. And the state federations, the last thing they will ever want to do is give up or reduce their state championships. It's where their revenue comes from. So if it's going to be done right, it has to be done on a breakaway basis. Can it be done on a breakaway basis? But there's another problem here in that there is one state and one state alone where the state championship is worthwhile. That's the state of São Paulo, which is the richest state by far. And it means that the smaller cities are rich enough to sustain good teams. So that the state championship in the state of São Paulo is worthwhile. Now that means that the clubs in that state, the big ones are Palmeiras, Corinthians, São Paulo, Santos, don't think they want to give it up, because they see that as giving them a competitive advantage. So that means there's a total deadlock on what we do with the calendar. And at the moment, it's not clear how those problems are going to be sorted out. So it will happen, this Premier League. Surely it will, not least because many more of the clubs are becoming more business orientated, and the money is going to, if you got them by the wallets, then their hearts and minds will follow. But it's going to be a long and winding road before we get there. The
last kind of minute or so you use there to describe that could just as readily describe the thoughts of an All-Ireland league in terms of It's literally exactly that. It's like the teams in the north, they want to protect their place in the European competitions. They want to protect their patch. But if you throw enough money at this, they'll probably say yes.
Politics is politics, Johnny.
Have a great evening over there, and enjoy the weekend and that horrible, horrible winter you're having over there.
Thanks. Your thoughts will warm the cockles of my heart. Thank you very much.
Let's go to the ads.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, Liverpool face Real Madrid in an unmissable Champions League final this Saturday, live on BT Sport.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, watch Huddersfield versus Nottingham Forest in the Championship Playoff Final this Sunday, live only on Sky Sports.
Yeah, it's great to get some texts in, such as, did you mention our comeback on Off the Ball, which is like a game of Astro and Sportsco there, where our mates team obviously had a comeback. I did get to thinking, Michael, about watching games abroad, and like I've in bars, for example. So in Italy, it's like people go in, you see the locals drinking probably espressos, and they go home. I suppose my fondest and earliest memories will be the old Setanta days where you'd be on holiday or vacation, as they tell you. In 1995, Galway played Tyrone, and I was 12 years of age, and going to the bar early, and you'd have all the food laid out for you, like Irish breakfast, beans, toast, rashers, sausages and all that. You go in and you pay your $20, and you'd watch the commentary from home with a load of expats. And obviously in Ireland we have pints and watch the game and create an atmosphere.
Yeah, it's funny, you kind of bring the culture with you a little bit in some way in that regard. I've been to one of those. I went to the paid in, like it's a good bit of money as well, at the All-Ireland final in 2015 in Boston.
Wow.
Dublin, Kerry, yeah. And yeah, we were at the American football over in Boston College. It was actually with Off the Ball, so we had to go and find the All-Ireland and morning in Boston. It was great. But I've been to also soccer games in the US where you would go and watch Champions League final or something like that. And I feel the American football culture is very much, it tries to be as English as it can be. So whereas you could go to watch a game in America and it isn't quite the drinking fest it is maybe here, I feel in America it's like this kind of forced chanting with an English accent and a lot of beer drinking.
Yeah, and as well as that, like the bars over there, they've so many TVs and so much sport on. It's kind of like, well, what is this bar about? Graham Gartland, you can relate to all of this, can you?
A little bit, yeah.
You met your future wife sort of on a night out, possibly watching sport?
I did actually. No, I was at a PFAI deal in Scotland. I was walking down the street and I bumped into her. Yeah.
What did she say to you?
She tried to put on an Irish accent, and then I sort of eyes lit up, thinking, I might just go home, go back to live in Ireland, and move back with you. And turned out she was living in Scotland, and then so I ended up staying then for the next few years just to see how I got on with her. Like, you know, luckily it worked out well in the end, probably. But yeah, I was listening to Tim there. Like, my wife's mother is from Brazil as well, like Curitiba. So it was interesting seeing how things are done in Brazil, you know.
Have you been over there?
I haven't, no. Our mum went back and Hannah was going to go with her. We were talking about bringing the boys maybe in a few years when they get a bit older. But it is a bit worrying sometimes for Europeans, they say. So just have to be careful.
How do you call the Champions League final?
I listened to what you said, Johnny. I actually thought you were very profound for once. Because I just thought with the, like you said, there's something on it that you feel Madrid might actually have their name on it a little bit because of how they've come through here, similar to when Liverpool won it years ago in 2005. And you're sort of going against that logic and faith. But if Liverpool take the chances that I think they'll get in the game, I think they should win it. But my head is saying that Liverpool will have too much for them overall in the game. But like you said, Madrid play in moments, and I think if Liverpool can limit them moments in the game from Madrid's point of view, I think Liverpool should win it. But I think it'd be tight. I think it'd be tighter than people think. Like, you know.
In terms of the League of Ireland, you know, you've kind of doing work for Shamrock Rovers, and you do the co-coms for Shamrock Rovers, maybe on the stream and all that, but I think you're around it enough to talk about in a general sense. The last couple of rounds of games, Graham, just been so bizarre. I was at Bohemians versus Sligo Rovers Friday night. Sligo were so poor that it wasn't amazing that Liam Buckley ended up losing his job. But I didn't go into the Pats game against Bows on Monday night having much expectation for either of them, because Pats were terrible on Friday night against Shells. But I didn't think Bows were that great against Sligo either. It was a 50-50 game for much of it. And Tunde Olabi starts and scores a hat-trick, two really well-taken goals. And Pats think that everything is grand. Bows lose 3-0, and then Rovers lose in Drogheda, and Derry City go down to Sligo and lose in the last minute. They're after losing to Dundalk. So Derry's form has actually fallen through the floor as well, and I can't make sense of any of this anymore. Yeah,
it's strange, like, because like you said, I think Bows, for the first, I was talking to a Bows fan this morning, and he actually said to me for the first half hour, Bows were really good in the game. It's like, but there's something in Bows at the minute. And I listened to Keith Long's interview afterwards, which you done with yourself as well. And he said that they need a bit more character, and that character comes about when you get hit with a sucker punch like they did in the game. So they've done well for the first half hour. They then lose a goal on the break. It's poor defender from Kelly, in fairness to him, and the distance between him and his other centre back is too big. Olabi then has a free run at goal, but it's like they never seem to be able to regroup after these things happen to them, and that's worrying from a Bows point of view. From a Pat's point of view, when their tails are up to a good side and they can go on runs where they play well, but they just haven't found any consistency at the minute, and that's why they're just up and down. Sligo's just a strange one in that they're sitting fifth in the league. If Shells win their game in hand, they go ahead of them. But like you said, they go and put in a performance after they lose their manager. That's worrying for me as a group, because where's them performances been that would have kept the manager in charge in the first place?
Yeah, that one though is a strange one, because Greg Bolger comes out after the game. Greg Bolger hasn't been playing all that well, I would say. He would argue that himself for Sligo. But like, is there a point in the dressing room where it just edges away, and as much as you want to give your 100%, like Sligo to me look like they just didn't mentally believe at all on Friday. And you can say then, okay, well, it was my fault as a player, but like nearly every fan I speak to from Sligo thinks this was the right decision.
Yeah, in fairness, I think I think a lot of the Dublin media as well are looking at it going, sure, what does Sligo expect? But people in Sligo expect more and they want more, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. From a Sligo's point of view, is that they're expecting more from the side. They're expecting more fight and endeavour from the teams and more consistency. So they're the ones that are in the town and in the city, and like you said, a lot of them are saying, listen, it probably just ran its course with Liam, and that's their prerogative as fans. But it'd be interesting to see who they get in. It'd be interesting to see what way they go about who they recruit in the summer, in terms of if the manager comes in, he gets to recruit his own players in the summer. Like you said, they lost Mahan and Kenny. I was talking to a journalist over in Scotland and said Mahan played really well in the playoff game against Inverness.
Yeah, keeping them up
really well in them games. And he could sort of see where that he's going to do well in the league over there. He's a big loss for them as well. But I always felt watching Sligo, and some games you'd watch them and they were really good, and other games I'd watch and I just thought they lacked a little bit of enthusiasm at times and nearly aggression. You know, when they haven't got the ball, they were really good on the ball, and it's great, and they can play, and everybody knows Liam Buckley will play. But I always felt they lacked a little bit of aggression and togetherness without the ball, and they were easy to play against at times. And hopefully, whatever happens with the new manager coming in, I think he probably demand off them more on that side of the pitch. The Drogheda result is a great result for Drogheda. Obviously, I was talking to Stephen on Tuesday evening. Stephen
Bradley, yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to Steve Bradley on Tuesday evening. I said, how did you find the game? And he said, listen, first half an hour we were really good. He says, once you get a goal up, United Park becomes really, really tight, as you know. And he just said that we just probably didn't do enough in the second half to break them down. So I think he was, from his point of view, from a Rovers point of view, he said he was just a little bit disappointed in that side of the game. But first half an hour he was really happy about. And then it makes for Shells. Shells are coming into town on a great run of results. I think that five wins on the trot. They're the form team. And
if like a lot of people are from, sadly, like the League of Ireland is badly represented geographically in this country, and a lot of people don't have a local team, and they might necessarily be League of Ireland fans, but if you're not necessarily that big into the League of Ireland, there's been a major revolution in terms of attendances, and this again, it's just become Shamrock Rovers home games are extremely well sold, and this looks like it's going to be sold out. Damien Duff has now had 4 wins on the bounce at Shelbourne. 3 of them he was actually banned from the touchline, and it's just crept up. And Damien Duff, not only Damien Duff, but Damien Duff and Joey O'Brien, 2 former internationals, obviously 2 former ex-Rovers players coming back to Tallaght, which is fascinating.
Yeah, it makes for an intriguing night. Like you said, sellout, it's great. They're the form team coming in. They'll know a lot about Rovers and how they play and how they set up without the ball, because obviously Joey had successful years there as well. Damien will be close enough with Stephen too, and McPhail. So it makes for a great game. Like you said, I listened to Joey's comments during the week. I 100% agree with him. Like, Damien's not going anywhere. He's, you know what I mean? He signed up for a team. He doesn't want to walk away. I think it's silly that people still think that's the case. And Joey's the same. Joey has an inner determination to be the best coach he can be. And that's what he's going to try and bring to Shells. And they were always going to be erratic this season coming up, and they were going to go through sticky moments. But, like, they've a togetherness about them, they've a lot of endeavour, they've a lot of enthusiasm. Sometimes they might lack quality at certain times, at vital times in the game, but that just comes with experience as well. They've a young enough side. JJ Lunny plays in midfield. They tend to be a little bit more solid. Luke Bourne is trying to obviously look after Cameron Ledwich as well and make sure he just gains experience in the games. But there's no bigger test than going to the champions and seeing how you get on and seeing where you are as a squad and a team.
Any worries about Jack Byrne going off injured? The suggestion he's not fully been at his best, but he hasn't completed that many games of late. Went off injured against Drogheda.
You know what? I didn't realise at the time until when I had that chat with him, when I do the clear the head stuff. Johnny, his back injury was probably a little bit more serious than they originally thought when he first went over to Nicosia. So it was one of those ones, but this ain't got to do with his back. This is just, I think, a slight little strain. So I don't think it's related to that. But it's just trying to get a run of games from him and trying to get his, like you said, keep that match fitness up. And if he can do that, like you said, in the games that he does play, and Stephen's been clever, like, because I've done every home game that we've done for League of Ireland TV, and like if the games are over, he takes Jack off and makes sure he minds him, like, because he's had a full year out. You know what I mean? He's had a full year out for football, so he can't just be thrown back in and expected to play 90 minutes. They have to ease him back in, and that's just a case of making sure he's well-minded. They have a great medical staff up there, Tony McCarthy, Dr. Alan Bourne, looking after him. So I'm sure Jack could be okay. It's just precaution.
Just before we finish up on Shamrock Rovers, I believe they're under 13s and under 14s, the All-Ireland champions on the same weekend last weekend, and a lot of kids with dads who are recognisable faces in this Rovers underage setup, of which are involved as well. Yeah,
they were the same team. So the team that played under 13s was the same team that played a year above themselves under 14s. Won both, yeah. Because their 14s team then is in the National League. We're going down to Galway on Saturday morning to play your under 14s, Johnny.
You had a bit of previous there.
Yeah, well, no, that group has moved on to under 15. So it's the under 14s National League. It's just playing the friendly games down there. So, a bit of previous between the two coaches. So we see how we get on. But, like Aaron Green's son plays for the team. Jack, Steve McPhail's son plays for the team. Joel, he scored the winner in the under 14s final. And Graham Barrett's son Thomas plays for the team as well. Robbie Keane was there in attendance. His son Robbie plays. So there's sprinkled throughout. Justin Ferrugia's little brother plays for them as well, Richie. So they're a really good squad. They've been together a long time, and Graham Barrett and the club have worked really hard in keeping them together and making sure that they stay hungry, and playing in both tournaments is great. And obviously with the 14s going National League, they're able to do that. So it was a brilliant achievement, considering our 11s and 12s had won the cups on the previous weekend as well. So it's a great achievement from the academy point of view, and it bodes well for the future. And who's there in the photo? Only a certain Gavin Bazunu, who seems to have been at more Rovers games than most diehard fans, including under 13, under 14 games. Which brings me to my last question. Just Ireland building up for the qualifiers. Are you excited by it? I see Stephen Kenny described the upcoming Ukraine game as a significant game in modern history. You have about a minute left. Looking forward to the games? Oh, yeah, I am looking forward to the games. Yeah, it's great, and obviously the Ukrainian factor in it is brilliant as well. And it's a good story for Irish football too. But I think from Stephen's point of view, be looking to make sure there's a performance put in, that they're building towards something as well. So a lot of excitement in the squad, some young players coming in, some players coming in that have probably been out of the fold as well. So it makes for interesting viewing come the Ukraine game. Where are you watching the game Saturday night? I'll probably go down and watch my brothers, because I'll be coming back from Galway at about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, or in the evening. So I'll just probably jump into my mum's and watch it, because my brothers are big Liverpool fans and my two little boys are Liverpool fans. So I'll sit and watch it there with them. How about you, Johnny? At a wedding, actually, as has been discussed. But we shall see what happens. I must wrap. Did you fit into the suit in the end? All to be revealed. Thanks for your time. You're doing a lot of cycling. Thanks, Graham. The football show is brought to you by Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, Liverpool face Real Madrid in an unmissable Champions League final this Saturday, live on BT Sport.